everybody, welcome back to U.S. History or American History with Mr. Finn. Today we are continuing with the American Civil War. If you remember, we had talked about the Battle of Antietam, which was the bloodiest battle in the war, and how the South was able to, they stopped attacking the North because they just didn't have the manpower to do it, especially after Antietam. However, the North and the Union continued to try and take Richmond, the capital of the South, over and over and over again. But these generals and their ability allowed the South or the Confederacy to, thwart those efforts or defeat the Northern troops coming down, which left us in a stalemate as far as the battle goes. Stalemate is where we left. Neither side was winning. It was dragging on. People were getting frustrated. It was becoming kind of ugly. And in the midst of this time period, we are going to see the Emancipation Proclamation. So we're going to take a little bit of a detour on the events that were happening as far as the war goes and tell you about some of the issues that are going to come to it. So if you remember in the beginning of this war, it kind of, the southern states decided to split with the Union because they figured, hey, we'll never have another president again because Abraham Lincoln was elected without any of our help or any of our votes, and so eventually our way of life is going to be ended. And so slavery became a major topic on this. Slavery is really at the heart of it the main reason for the war. Because remember, the North was moving in an industrial direction. Slavery free states in the North had existed for years at this point. Slavery around the world had kind of, was an old way of thinking. So slavery was not a popular thing in America as well as in the rest of the world. But yet the South was hanging on to this idea because of their agriculture base, and they had all the cotton that they wanted to grow. And so slavery really becomes the central reason for the American Civil War, because the South felt that the North would say, hey, we're taking over now, you can't have slavery, we're going to outlaw it, you're out of luck. And they didn't want that. And so, because of this, eventually Abraham Lincoln is going to see that he has to, it is about this. In the beginning, Abraham Lincoln said, hey, I'm not going to stop slavery. My main concern is just keeping the Union together, keeping the United States together. That is his main goal. So just to have it on our notes. So slavery is going to be the main reason for the war. We'll put it over here. Abraham Lincoln goes from I wouldn't say that he did not care about slavery, because he did. He was against slavery, but he didn't want to disrupt the country. So he goes from, let's just say doing nothing about slavery. That was his stance when he became the president. I'm going to do nothing about it. Don't worry, South. You don't need to be afraid. To, freeing the slaves. Now, how does he make this major change in his viewpoint? He goes from saying, hey, I'm not going to do anything, to now I'm going to free the slaves. Well, basically the South did this. South Carolina and the rest of the states in the South who seceded from the Union, meaning split away, put it to a point where Abraham Lincoln said, well, the reason why I said I wasn't going to do anything is because I didn't want to have a civil war. I didn't want these states to secede. But now, since they have, and we're in the middle of a civil war anyway, now, hey, you know what? I don't like slavery in the first place, so now I'm going to free the slaves. And that brings us over to here. The Emancipation Proclamation is going to be, it's a proclamation, it's a document, it is a statement, but let's call it this. This is what frees the slaves. The Emancipation Proclamation. So basically, to be emancipated is freedom, and proclamation is to proclaim it, to say it. And Abraham Lincoln gives this Emancipation Proclamation document speech. It says, basically, to wrap it up very shortly, any of the slaves who are in areas of rebellion, meaning the South, shall, at this time, on January 1st, it's going to be January 1st, 1863, right in the middle here, well, 3/4 into this war, slaves would be, I believe it is, henceforth and forever free, meaning, exactly at this time, you are now free and forever free on January 1st, 1863, if you were in rebellion. Now, this is not the only way slaves had been gaining their freedom. Throughout this war, follow me here, contraband is property. Technically, we think about contraband today in our world would be property taken by police or authorities. So contraband today is like if someone has drugs on them and the police pull them over, or they seize those drugs, that is contraband. That's the way we think about today, but really it just means any seized property by authorities or property taken by authorities that would be considered illegal. Now, in the North, they consider slavery bad, and now it is illegal. And slaves, really all they had to do from the start of the war is if they heard, hey, the Union Army is 3 miles north, run. All I have to do as a slave is run and get to the Union Army. If I get to the Union Army, I, being property, can technically be considered contraband. And if I am considered contraband, I am property that has been taken by the authorities, even though I ran to get to you. And then the United States Army would say, you're free. We have taken you, property, slave, and now we're going to let you be free. And so, slaves had been setting themselves free, I guess you could say, by getting to areas that the Union Army was in charge of. And so, slavery having been the main reason for this war at the heart of it. Now, by the time we're getting to 1863, we're starting to see the end of slavery. So now this becomes a war. This becomes, based on all of this, main reason for the war, and now it becomes a moral war. At first, it was a war to keep the Union together. We want to keep the United States together, but now it has kind of turned into this moral war where the North is like, hey, slavery is wrong. We're going to stop it. We're going to end it. We're fighting to end slavery now. And the South is saying, no, you're trying to stop our way of life, and that's the route that this goes. Quickly, what happens to these slaves that have run away and that become free that are contraband? This is an interesting side note that you don't hear a lot, but a slave that had run to try to get to the Union troops, many, if not most, fight for the U.S., aka the Union troops or the North. For good reason. Think about it. If you were a slave and you had run away and you had gotten to be free and you were a slave beforehand, now you're free, and someone says, listen, you can be in the military, we give you food and shelter, and on top of that, you can fight against the people who made you a slave in the first place. It's not a shock that many are going to choose, hey, I'm just a slave who ran here. I don't have any money, I don't have any food, I have nothing at all. So you're telling me you're going to take me, allow me to fight for the Union, I'm going to have food and shelter and all those things? Deal. And so, I mean, the book has it in here, but I believe it's close to 180,000 slaves. I guess former slaves at this time. 280,000 join the Union troops. This is a huge number, just gives more numbers to the north. So what you're seeing now is the war is becoming a moral war about what's right, what's wrong, slavery. Slavery is now it is the point of the war. If the North wins, slavery is over. If the South wins, slavery will continue. So this is where we're headed to. Now, again, we're still in a stalemate right now as far as the war goes. We need to figure out how are we going to break this stalemate. How is the North going to fight against the South? They have been trying to take Richmond. Robert E. Lee continues to stop their efforts. We did see the death of Stonewall Jackson in one of those battles, meaning that a key general is going to be gone from this war. But just to give you a hint, we're going to be taking a look at Ulysses S. Grant, who is, if you remember, using gunboats on the Mississippi to attack the South and to open up lanes for people to come in to the South. And he is going to make a major difference in the outcome of this war. Where all the other generals are failing to stop the South, Ulysses S. Grant is finally going to get his chance to step up for Abraham Lincoln, and that's where we will pick up next time. But for today, go ahead and give me my notes for attendance and participation purposes, and I will see you next class.